The history of blackface in this country is the history of racism in this country, the history of slavery in this country, the history of Jim Crow in this country. It is something that is painful for most of us to see, to hear about, and to think about. And it is, for that reason, deeply troubling that anyone in the 20th or the 21st century would engage in that kind of behavior, and it should be taken very seriously.
There's this idea of believing women. You've talked a lot about it. When you read the letter, do you believe her?
I think there should be an investigation to determine what happened. But certainly her letter reads as, it's quite detailed and suggests that there's credibility there, but there needs to be an investigation.
And so how do we get to a point where we can start having the conversation without people falling into a defensive crouch? Because sometimes when folk want to tell the truth about something, they fear speaking the truth or talking to people about what they don't understand. I've had conversations with white friends of mine this week who just had the safety to come to me and ask me, I don't understand this blackface thing. Can you explain it to me? Imagine in this climate now saying that publicly. Imagine, put yourself, want to have more courageous empathy, put yourself in a white person's position who might have questions. Look, I grew up in high school in the 80s, man, and it was a homophobic environment. I got to college and I started working as a volunteer. I eventually ran the organization. It's an organization called The Bridge in Stanford. It's a crisis hotline. Anybody can call in with any problem. We have suicide calls, sexual assault calls. But I'm a young kid and I didn't know these issues. I started getting these calls from people who are struggling with coming out. And I started hearing these stories of pain and anguish, of hurt and fear. And I still remember a guy, I remember his name was Daniel, and he was a gay and lesbian counselor there, and he sat down with me one night and just gave me a safe space to ask him questions. What grace he extended to me to ask stupid questions of a guy that was not woke about LGBTQ issues. But because of that honest conversation, I saw my ignorances and I grew. Thank God he gave me a pathway to redemption. We got to tell the truth, but we, all of us, black, white, gay, straight, we've got to start extending grace to each other so we can have honest conversations and leave room for growth.
Did you get that? Tip my hat to Tariq for helping bring that Cory Booker abomination to my attention. These two videos are of the mulatto and Asian candidates for president talking about blackface, and what a surprise. Both of their statements are just shameless parades of splaining. I mean, for God's sake, a redneck down south couldn't have said it any better than these two chumps. Of course, Kamala Harris says a whole lot of nothing. She minimizes the whole Virginia governor blackface scandal by just calling it merely painful. It's painful, it's troubling. This is not a doggone visit to the dentist, stupid. But of course, Cory Booker, who clearly, after the shellacking that he's been getting from the new voices of black media, he's understanding that no, we can walk and chew bubblegum at the same time. We can go ahead and continue to keep the heat on Kamala Harris and at the same time point and say, hey, Cory Booker, we ain't forgotten about you. He's realizing, I guess that little talk that he had with the Breakfast Schlubs, on the Breakfast Club, I guess that was a wake up to him. He's looking and going, man, I thought I was going to be able to coast through here, but there's hit me with a black agenda. I know where this came from. Cory Booker's just absolutely pathetic with this. He's going overboard, ain't he? He says we have to put ourselves in the shoes of white people whenever we speak about blackface. Now, you know who the hell audience that's meant to appeal. Neither one of them, by the way, neither Cory Booker nor Kamala Harris mentioned black people during their little bouts of splaining. They didn't bother to talk about black people. Now, you got a racist display meant to ridicule and mock black people, this white cultural practice, because that's what blackface is. And you got two presidential candidates who talk about it, kind of talk about it, more like blathering and blithering about it, without ever mentioning black people. How do you talk about that without ever mentioning black people? Because you wouldn't be talking about some display of anti-Semitism without mentioning Jewish people, now would you? Neither one of them, by the way, said that it was wrong. Did you notice that? Kamala Harris, as she's done before so many times, like when she was talking about the prisoners in New York who were left without heat in the middle of a polar vortex. She said that it was haunting. Yeah, but she didn't say it was wrong. And now about blackface, she says that it's painful, that it's troubling, but she doesn't say that it's wrong. And Cory Booker, he did one better than that. He decided not only would he not say that it was wrong, he was going to say that you've got to listen to white people. Yeah, because white people have been so unheard for the last 500 years, haven't they? Neither Cory Booker nor Kamala Harris actually condemned any of these blackface incidents, didn't condemn it at all. And they certainly don't condemn the white people who do it. To attack blackface is to attack white culture, and these clowns, they're just puppets of white supremacy. They're auditioning for the job of president, and they're letting white folks know, hey, if you thought that Obama was a shameless suck-up to white supremacy, we'll do one better than that. We got the knee pad ready. Cory Booker has seen that he's going to be required to bring tangibles to black people if he has any delusions of getting our vote. And he's clearly decided, well, I'm not going to do that. He sees that a new day has dawned. All of his insane rantings about igniting the moral imagination of the country and all the rest of his word salad isn't fooling anyone. He clearly is trying to get votes with all of this highfalutin rhetoric, and he's not even very good at the whole soaring rhetoric thing. Whenever he's in front of people, he's sitting here acting as if he's writing a term paper for a political science class. This guy's terrified to make anything plain because he figures that he's going to be able to talk his way into the White House. He's just going to sit here and baffle us with BS. And I guess he figures he'll do that all the way to the White House, and he's going to have a wake-up call. There's going to be a shock to him, but not to anyone else. His asinine rantings are just proof that this guy, he never was with us. I don't care if he's got one authentic, alleged American DOS in his family. Obviously, he left that behind a long time ago. He's clearly trying to figure out how does he appeal to the white racist vote. Well, he's not going to talk his way around the political demands of black people, and neither will Kamala Harris. So they're both pivoting hard for those white votes. They're pretty much showing now, this is pretty much the proof, along with Kamala Harris deciding to go after Lieutenant Governor Fairfax. This is pretty much the proof that both Kamala and Cory are giving up on leading black people around by the nose. This is them essentially giving a silent throwing in of the towel. They figured that they would run right after Obama and it would be easy to get black folks to follow him, and they're finding out that it's not going to be easy at all. These two got to where they are by assuring white power that they're going to toe the line and that they are able to short circuit and deflect and stop black discontent. They can control the Negroes. That's how those two got to where they are. They assured the Democratic Party leadership, we can control the Negroes. We got these people on a leash. You know, we'll be the black front men for white supremacy, and we're going to make sure that all of these angry black folks stay off code, make sure that they also stay off target. When Cory Booker is, what he's doing here by telling black folks, he's basically lecturing the black community that you need to see things from white people's perspective and listen to the truth that white people are telling. When he sits here doing this, sticking up for a blatantly anti-black racist practice, which has been used as the precursor to violent hate crimes against us for hundreds of years, when he does this mess, he is carrying out a very deadly agenda. What he's doing here is deadly for black people. It's not dangerous, it's lethal to us. He's telling us that when the issue of racism comes up, that's what this is about. Whenever racism comes up, whenever white people's racist behavior comes up, black people have an obligation to make the racists comfortable. We got an obligation not to demand that we be the ones made comfortable because we're the ones under attack. We're the ones being dehumanized and degraded and denigrated. We don't have the right to demand that we be made comfortable even though we're the ones who are being assaulted and offended. Instead, it's the white people who are demonstrating their anti-black bigotry who we need to make comfortable. And listen to the words that this piece of trash used. Sometimes when folks want to tell the truth about something, they fear speaking the truth. What? At no point in his bullcrap-laden rant does he ever say that white people need to listen to us. The problem is blackface, but Cory Booker makes it clear that the problem, as far as he's concerned, is that black people don't listen to white people. Yeah, hasn't that been the biggest problem of American society for hundreds of years? I mean, I feel so sorry for white people, how black people have systematically oppressed white people for hundreds of years and have systematically disenfranchised white people and silenced white voices for 500 years. I feel so sorry for them. Black people should be ashamed. I mean, white people haven't had the ability to express themselves because black people have been prohibiting them from expressing themselves because black folks have just been oppressing white people for so long. When's the last time that a white person has gotten to have their way on anything? Oh, my heart goes out to them. It really does. Oh, the plight of the pale males. No one has ever gone to jail for wearing blackface. No one has ever been made to pay a fine for doing it. And it's rare that someone even loses their job for that, but Cory Booker is talking as if white racists wearing blackface are getting rounded up and herded onto cattle cars the way that he tells it. And what's happening? Just the mere fact that the white supremacists are being merely criticized. They're not being punished. Just the fact that they're actually being criticized for it, that the society actually has some people who are calling them out on it. And the fact that a white person just cannot exercise their racism freely without even criticism. They're not being punished, they're just merely criticized. Far as Cory Booker's concerned, I object to you criticizing them. This is a guy running for president, and he's openly defending wearing blackface. Who the hell needs Richard Spencer? You got Cory Booker. When he says people are afraid to tell the truth, he doesn't say that black people are afraid to lose their jobs if they call white people out on their racism. He never says that black people are afraid of white reprisals if they challenge white people's racist behavior. And please tell me exactly what is this truth Cory Booker was talking about that someone running around in blackface is going to tell me? What truth can I learn from a raving out-of-control racist who's in front of me disrespecting me to my face? What truth can I learn from that person? And to me, the topper was when that bastard said, if you want to have more courageous empathy, put yourself in a white person's position. Really? So white people are running around being blatantly racist, demeaning and mocking black people, and I need to see things from their point of view? Talk about sympathy for the devil. There is nothing, absolutely nothing courageous or empathic about putting myself in the shoes of a white person. This society has been forced to regard white as some tabula rasa normalcy. They are the status quo, who everyone and everything is supposed to be shot through the prism of white perspective. When you use terms like the everyman, that means every white man. When you say all American, that means all white. Put myself in white people's shoes, see things from their point of view. The white point of view is the only point of view sanctioned in this society. It's the only point of view that we ever get. It's the only perspective that's ever seen or heard. The history books are written for them, by them, about them, for the sake of either trying to lionize their depraved behavior or to legitimize every demonic thing they've ever done. White people in this society are used to having a nonstop orgy of psychological masturbation. Their entire lives are spent with every facet of the society validating them and reinforcing that they and only they matter. There is absolutely nothing courageous about taking the position of the people in power, especially when these people have spent 500 years going on a nonstop murder, rape, and vandalism spree. The white position that Cory Booker's talking about, that's the coward's position, which explains why Cory Booker is espousing it. It doesn't take any courage to tell white people that they're right. That lie has been hammered over our heads every minute, every day. It takes no courage to tell the most undeservedly well-off and pampered group in the society that people need to empathize with them. Cowards do that. Cowards cater to the people who the society is already catering to. Cowards patronize and suck up to the most powerful people in the society. That's what a coward does. A coward refuses to speak truth to power. Instead, he decides to talk lies to power and then say that's the truth. And the thing is, when you call yourself encouraging and making excuses for white people's racism, that's the easiest thing that you can do in the society because you don't have to pay a price for that. In fact, you get rewarded for it. The most well-heeled, powerful men in the society will give you all sorts of prizes and cash and lofty positions and big high-paying jobs if you go ahead and toe the white privilege line, which is why you got so many black folks who, even though they know it's total garbage, will go and do it anyway. Calling out white people's racism, that takes courage because it's not popular. It's never popular to speak truth to power. Black people have no power. So that being the case, who the hell is Cory Booker talking about? What truth is he talking about? Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. wasn't assassinated because he was being critical of black people. Medgar Evers wasn't murdered because he was being critical of black people. The 16th Street Baptist Church wasn't firebombed and 4 innocent little girls, black girls, burned to death because they were being critical of black people. No one has ever been harmed, much less killed because they were being critical or even openly advocating the harming of black people. In fact, if you get out there and call yourself attacking black people, that's your ticket to ride in this society. Black people don't have the ability to fire any of the racists attacking us. We don't have the ability to evict them from their housing. We can't deny them entry to a school or to a job. Black people have no power in this society. White people, on the other hand, have all of those powers that I mentioned and more. They got a society that diddles their egos nonstop. They live their entire lives with no one telling them anything about themselves that they don't want to hear except for the occasional black person. And you got Cory Booker saying that's too much. So how does it take courage to empathize with the people who the society is constantly shoving their POV down your throat nonstop? I'm supposed to be able to empathize with the people who every time I look up, from newspaper articles to advertisements to television shows to novels to political speeches to Sunday school sermons, everything is all about what white people think, what white people say, what white people do. Oh, I need to empathize with them. Theirs is the only perspective that we ever get. How do I empathize with someone who is attempting to dehumanize me? White people don't need empathy. They need excoriation for their racism. They need to be told they're doing something wrong, and the ones who are engaging in the racism need to be made to pay a serious price for their behavior. Cory Booker doesn't tell the white people that the problem is that they don't listen. As he sees it, they don't have the problem. The problem is black people are making them feel bad about their guilty little fun. He sounds no different than Megyn Kelly. He sounds no different than Bill O'Reilly. He sounds no different than Bill Maher. He sounds no different than every other left-wing, right-wing racist that you ever heard. And this is how Cory Booker thinks that he's going to slick his way to the presidency. He thinks he's going to do it by openly advocating and defending the dehumanizing of black people. What he's doing is dangerous. Because as we all know, when white people are engaging in their displays of racism, they're not doing it merely as a racist form of performance art. They're doing it as part of the daily drumbeat of anti-black violence. The dehumanizing images of black people are how the white supremacists justify harming black people. It is not some victimless crime whenever you got some white man running around in blackface. He is proclaiming his anti-black hatred. You wonder why it is that there's so many black people locked up in the state of Virginia? You want to know why it was when Richard Spencer and his racist pals showed up in Charlottesville that they didn't get prosecuted? Look who the hell look who the Attorney General of the state is. That bastard, he got caught doing the same damn thing. Explains a lot now, don't it? See, these are not victimless crimes. These are the white supremacists, left wing and right wing, declaring their eternal allegiance to anti-black racism. It is the biggest, most powerful religion in the world, anti-black racism. And what Cory Booker is doing is setting the stage for the normalizing of it at the presidential level. He's not using a dog whistle. He's using a foghorn. He's telling all the white racists, look, I want you guys to know I'm on your side. He couldn't have put that any plainer. What he did was a move meant to embolden racists from coast to coast. The same way that Barack Obama signed that Blue Lives Matters crap. That was meant to embolden the racists with badges. Obama knew exactly what he was doing. Kamala Harris's talk about it, although it may not be quite as outrageous as Cory Booker, it's nonetheless equally just perplexing. She talks about these blackface incidents like it's a thunderstorm or something. She talks about it as this disembodied event. The words that she used, it could have applied to anything. You could have shown her a picture of a puppy with a broken leg and her words would have been just as appropriate, because that's how vague she was being, how milquetoast she was being. Oh, this whole thing with the blackface. Why I tell you, it's painful. It's troubling. She could be talking about a freaking puppy or a window on a house that got broken. That's how vague Kamala Harris is being about the dehumanizing of black people at the hands of the dominant society. She doesn't talk about how dangerous it is, doesn't talk about how deadly it is. She doesn't bring up the black people who have been harmed and killed as a result of this white racist practice. And she damn sure doesn't talk about punishment. Blackface is not some generalized incivility. It's not some overall act of offense. It is a specific, deliberate racist act, one aimed at a specific group deliberately. You would never see anybody calling themselves getting out there mocking gay people and then have Cory Booker sticking up for them. But then again, Cory Booker, he's in this video, he thinks he's slick by turning his white ass kissing session into a chance to suck up to the LGBTs by telling them that he grew up in a homophobic high school environment and that he worked for a crisis hotline, and he makes sure to mention that he talked with gay people about coming out. Notice it, see how he did that? We went from talking about blackface to, ooh, I better make sure that I mention the gays. I want them to know that I'm all for them. Yeah, he was specific talking about gays. He mentioned gays. He didn't mention black people, the very ones attacked by this racist display, but he made sure to mention the gays. He made sure to mention them by name. And notice that he makes sure to throw in that he had a gay co-worker and that he talked to this gay co-worker, the way that he talked about this guy like he was Jesus Christ. That he extended grace to him. Grace? We're talking about a guy who practices sodomy. How the hell does that qualify him on the same level as Jesus Christ? But that's what Cory Booker's doing. He's laying it on thick. You can tell who his true constituency is, racist white people and LGBTs. That's Cory Booker's dream constituency. That's his political base as he sees it. That's who he wants to appeal to. Now, we need to remember that what Cory Booker did is to pull a play right from the Obama playbook. After the white media decided to make unnecessary and fictional hay out of Reverend Wright's speech, which was a beautiful sermon. Now, there's somebody who told the truth, but you'll never see Cory Booker say, well, you know, when black people are telling the truth, white people have to listen while people are telling the truth. And stop having knee-jerk reactions. He ain't saying that, not about black people, but he will tell black people that we need to pipe down when white people are telling the truth. But after the white media decided to attack Reverend Wright, Obama gave that empty speech right afterwards where he said precisely nothing. All Obama said was that black people feel aggrieved and white people feel put upon, and we all have to come together. It was the epitome of a non-statement. But the white media praised him for it like he had just delivered the Gettysburg Address because he did not side with a black man who told the truth about America. Reverend Wright told the God's honest truth about this sick white supremacist toilet masquerading as a nation. But the white media knew what the real purpose of this political theater was that they were putting on. It was to put black voices who called out racism on notice. Black people who called themselves telling the truth about America, calling out racism. The white media wanted to have a full display. Hey, this Obama guy, he's declaring that he ain't going to rock the boat. So when you black folks are unquestionably in the right, don't expect Obama to take your side. And you know what? They were right. And beyond that, without getting too far in the weeds, what also needs to be touched upon is the conversation that nobody is ever willing to have whenever the issue of blackface comes up. And that is the disrespecting, the systematic disrespecting and dehumanizing of black people is a global problem because anti-black racism is a global problem. I did the definitive video about blackface in white and yellow, and I also told you about how in Mexico, one of the most cherished cultural figures is a racist cartoon character, Meme Penguin. In Australia, they had a scandal over one of their blackface acts, the Jackson Jive. In the Netherlands, they have Zwarte Piet, and I don't need to tell you about the racist cartoon and caricatures that come out of Korea, China, and Japan. White supremacy created a global racial pecking order, using skin color as an organizing principle by which to get people in line with the idea, and the rest of the world is showing their allegiance and their support for this through blackface. That's what blackface is meant to do with these other non-black groups. All of these non-white folk from Asia to Europe to wherever, to Latin America, here they are engaging in blackface, knowing damn well what it's about. It's not because they don't know. You never see them doing it in front of black people now, do you? If they really were just innocent babes in the woods who had no idea that this was wrong, notice how they never do it in front of black people. They only do it in front of their own people, so they know that it's wrong. They know that. It's no different than the immigrants who come to the U.S. They know that in order to get in good with white supremacy, they have to demonstrate that they are fully on board with white supremacy's most important belief, the most important tenet of white supremacy. They're dedicated to upholding the central pillar that supports white supremacy, and that is anti-black racism. That is what defines white supremacy. White supremacy is not defined by religion. White supremacy is not defined by geographical area. White supremacy is not defined by anti-Asian bigotry, anti-Latino bigotry, anti-Indian bigotry, or anything else for that matter. It is defined by one thing and one thing alone: anti-black racism. That's what the system is based upon. And you see that because these other groups, they make sure to single out black people in particular. There's lots of other people who they could single out, but they make sure that they single out black people in particular. This makes it where these other groups are every bit as guilty of white supremacy as the most dyed-in-the-wool white racist. This happens to be white supremacy's global pact of evil, and they're all in on it. And we should cut none of them any slack for that. Now, Corey and Kamala realize that they're not going to get the black vote. It's part of the reason why they're trying to set the stage for what they hope is going to be a political pivot. We see that now that their strategy is to appeal to the racist white centrist vote. That's what you see going on here. They're trying to appeal to racist white people at the political center. They know that there's a lot of white folks who are political centrists on issues like the economy, education, healthcare, foreign policy. But when it comes to black people, these white centrists are racist as hell. And while these white centrists may disagree with Trump on many issues, or they may disapprove of his boorish behavior, when it comes to Trump's racism, these white centrists support him 100%. So that's what it is that Kamala and Corey are hoping to do. They're hoping to get the attention of these racist white centrists and let them know, hey, we know that the main thing that you guys voted for Trump on is that he came on strong, especially with the whole white privilege thing, and you felt reassured. And hey, we want to let you know, we get that. We're going to go ahead and lay it on thick. We want you to know that we're down with the reinforcing of white privilege and all of your undue giveaways, goodies, and guarantees you've been getting for nothing for all this time. We want to make sure that, and just to let you know that we're not going to cause you any trouble, we're going to make sure to throw black people under the bus. We're going to make sure, hey, that whole blackface thing, it's time for a new discourse. People have been too politically correct. Black people need to listen to white people. They need to hear the truth. And Cory Booker, of course, never says what truth is being said. So what it comes down to is black people need to listen to white people. Just sit there and listen to white people. Don't ask any questions. White people speak, you need to obey. This is Cory Booker, former mayor of Newark, sitting United States Senator, and an unapologetic apologist and proponent for white supremacy. Running for the presidency. This is going to become a normal part of the discourse around presidential elections if we do not come out strong against this. If this bastard is not made to pay a political price, and a heavy one, if he is not punished publicly and hard by us, this is going to become a normal part of the political cycle. It's going to be, well, what are black people complaining about blackface for? Well, you need to hear white people out when they tell you why it is that they do it. In other words, don't say that it's wrong. Don't say that there's anything wrong with it. That's what this is meant to do. They're not coming out and saying it. They're going to let Cory Booker break the ice on this one. And they're not alone. Alexandria Cortez put her racist cards on the table. She was on Meet the Press talking her gobbledygook gibberish about how she has African, Native American, and Spanish colonizers in her family tree. But she goes on to declare that she doesn't identify herself as black or as Indian, but she feels she can speak for these groups. Don't take my word for it. Let her tell you herself.
My identity is the descendant of many different identities. I am the descendant of African slaves. I am a descendant of indigenous peoples. I'm a descendant of Spanish colonizers. I am a descendant of all sorts of folks. That doesn't mean I'm black. That doesn't mean I'm, native. But it does mean that I can use that as I can tell the story of my ancestors. That doesn't mean that I am that. And so I think in terms of how we navigate that, I think...
Did you get that? And the one thing that gets me about this little idiotic diatribe that she goes on, you notice that when she says she's not black, she has a huge, big crap-eating grin on her face. It ain't just because of the fact that her teeth are bigger than a horse's. It makes her smile a mile wide to tell people, don't call me black. We've seen this before, too, from Barack Obama. He would let people know that he had some Polynesian or Asian ancestry, whatever it is you want to call it. I forget what the exact acronym is because it don't apply to me, but that's what Obama did. I warned you about Alexandria Cortez after her election win that she didn't say a piddling word about black people, and she refused to. Alexandria Cortez is an anti-black racist. She's declaring that she's going to dictate to black people what to think. She is declaring that she arbitrarily has the authority to speak for black people, whether we agree or not. She's going to tell us what we should think and what we ought to have. She's trying to have it both ways. She wants to be able to tell black people she has African ancestry, but at the same time, she disavows that same ancestry. But she is going to speak for that ancestry that she herself says I don't identify as. Spoken like a Spanish colonizer, because she wasn't about to disavow that Spanish colonizer ancestry, now was she? You got a woman who at best could only say that she's proud that some Spaniard raped one of her ancestors. That's all she can say. But when it comes time to identify herself, she's leaving it clear. She says, I got black in me, I got Indian in me, I got Spanish in me, but I'm not black or Indian. Okay, that only leaves the Spanish now, don't it? And by the way, Cortez is giving a preview of the pathetic word game that these other non-black groups are going to try to pull should the issue of reparations start to gain steam. She's letting you know exactly what it is that she intends to do. That whole thing with Ta-Nehisi Coates, when she got asked about reparations, and she's sitting here saying that, well, reparations ought to be seen as an issue post-New Deal. In other words, let's grandfather clause the Hispanics into the issue. She mentioned 3 groups that she thought should come into consideration for reparations. She said black people, African Americans, Puerto Ricans, and Mexicans. So out of the 3 groups that she named, 2 are Hispanic. What do you think that means? It means, as far as she's concerned on the issue of reparations, Hispanics ought to get a check. Not that they did anything or deserve it, but they ought to get a check. And whatever money that there might be from it, well, Hispanics should get 2/3 of it. She's only claiming black ancestry pro forma. She doesn't actually mean it. She just made it excruciatingly clear where she stands. We have to make it clear that we are representing a Black American slavery agenda, not a slavery agenda, not even a Black slavery agenda, but an agenda to bring economic and political power to those of us whose ancestors were enslaved in this country, not in Puerto Rico or anywhere else. You're going to have all kinds of people who have been fighting against us, and people like Cortez who have been supporting white supremacy for a century now, trying to lay claim to anything that's meant for us, like they did with affirmative action. They've heard what it is that we're saying here. What we've said has reverberated and put a major party candidate on her heels. You better believe Cortez is already looking and going, Donald Trump's not going to lose re-election. So a few years from now, when I try to run for president, I have to contend with the fact that there are Black people out here saying we're chasing a Black first agenda. And it ain't going to be, they're not going to fall for the okie doke. It's not going to be easy to pull these people off course. So she's already trying to layer in what her lies are going to be. Our voices are getting stronger every day, and she's part of the political apparatus that's supposed to contain those Black voices, to derange those Black voices, to stifle those Black voices, and ultimately to snuff them out. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, the modern-day 21st century conquistadora. Yeah, she's heard what the hell it is that we're saying here, the impact that our words are having, and even now they got their flunky Cortez out here who's trying to have it both ways. She's a proud supporter of white supremacy, but if the descendants of Black American slaves ever start to get some tangibles, well, she reserves the right to be Black. You better believe if some tangibles come up for African Americans who are descended from slaves, those of us who are ADOS, whatever you want to call it, you better believe Cortez will be standing there with her hand out going, I've got Black ancestry. You don't claim them. You don't identify as Black. Yeah, but this is about people who have Black ancestry. It's about Black people. Yeah, she'll be trying to claim to be one of us when it suits her. And not even really one of us, just claiming that, well, I had one of them in my family tree. So white power can once again have an excuse to deny to us what we and only we are entitled to. When these bastards talk about Black in this country, we better make damn sure that we check them on it. We didn't let the Democratic presidential candidates get away with all that all lives matters crap back in the 2016 election. What's his name? O'Malley, who was governor of Maryland, he got shellacked because of that when he tried that line, and Bernie Sanders caught it too. Hillary Clinton was reduced to having her little appearances be very, very circumscribed as to who got in because of the fact that she also was getting checked too. Whenever these Democrats tried that all lives matters crap, we called them on it. We checked them on it. We pulled their coat hard as hell. And they eventually wound up getting called out at their campaign appearances. How embarrassing. So you better take note, okay? These Hispanic and Asians and many white people, they're going to try the same trick. People who have never identified themselves as Black will all of a sudden be saying that they got some Black ancestry. We got to make it clear, being Black isn't enough. The issue is American slaves and what we're owed. That whole $5 Indian thing, you better believe it's going to be on steroids should the issue of reparations actually become a dominant factor in American political discourse. If we put that on the map and make it where this is something that actually will happen, all of a sudden you're going to have all these white folks saying, well, the one drop rule is going to be the $5 Indian crap all over again. We got to define who it is who qualifies as the descendant of a slave in this country and who doesn't. If your ancestors weren't in the killing fields of the American concentration camps, then you don't qualify. We're the ones who have to set that definition. You can't allow people like Cory Booker to do it. You can't allow the congressional Black talkers to do it. This is going to require an enormous amount of discipline and focus on our part. But we've gotten this far. We've shown that we got the will. Now we got to show the persistence to go along with it. But at the risk of celebrating too soon, I do think it needs to be noted that the reason that you got Cory, Kamala, and Cortez sitting here just blithering gibberish is because of the fact that they're not sure what to do. We have flexed our muscles. We flexed hard as hell on Kamala Harris, and we've emboldened other people to do the same. The New York Times wasn't where this began. It began with us. We've been the ones talking about her because ultimately the New York Times was merely reflecting what it was that we said. That op-ed that the New York Times ran, that thing was supposed to be a one-and-done affair. It was supposed to be a cover their butts piece so that if anybody ever asks, did you bring up Kamala Harris's record? Yeah, we did an op-ed about it. Now shut up. And notice they put it in the op-ed section. That thing was full of nothing but facts. Why wasn't that a column? Because of the fact that the New York Times understands the game that's being played. Plausible deniability. They can deny covering for Kamala Harris by pointing out that they ran a one-and-done op-ed piece. But what they didn't know was all they did was simply to help amplify the conversation we were already having. And we used that as a springboard to say, see, even the white media has to admit that there's something wrong with it. Now they did a 180 after that. Whoa, dang, we didn't know this was going to catch on. We didn't know that you guys were going to take what we said and run with it. We didn't know that we were playing into the hands of the new voices of black media. We were the ones who acted as the booster for that particular truth about Kamala Harris's record. We were the ones who did that. And we know that we were the ones who did that because we're the ones who have kept it going. Not the New York Times, not any of the white media outlets. We're the ones who have kept this going. And you see how the Democrats' major party candidates, supposed to be the best and brightest, the people who are supposed to be leading the party, the new face of the Democratic Party, here they are, twisting their forked tongues into knots. Because on the one hand, they want to give us the same old misleading, diverting rhetoric. They want to do the same old game of talking around our interests because they've been getting away with it for so long. And at the same time, they know that's not going to work. And they're trying to figure out, how do we get just close enough to talking like these black empowerment types, but without offending the white folks who we know that who we really are trying to do the bidding of? How do we thread that particular needle? And what they're finding out is they can't. We have pushed a political type of discourse that makes it where they can't even afford to talk like us. They can't even afford to acknowledge us. And at the same time, they're too scared to attack us openly. As a fellow white supremacist said, I'm talking about Thomas Jefferson here, we have a tiger by the ears and we can neither safely hold him nor let him go. What they understand, though, is that tiger's about to get loose. And he's got the claws at the ready. And when this black empowerment tiger finally gets these good white folks off our ears, it's going to be time for dinner. These Democratic Front people for white supremacy, they don't know whether to spit or go blind. They see that we are forwarding a new political discourse, one that is geared toward empowering us, the very thing that they are determined is not going to happen. The black community is starting to become single-issue voters, and our issue is economic tangibles for the descendants of slaves in this country. So, the Democrat Party's front people have been reduced to babbling in the empty hope of talking around that core issue. They do not want that to become part of the political discourse, and at the same time, they can't stop it either because black people are making it clear the only way you're going to be having black people at the polls is if you are seriously representing our interests, and our first interest is political tangibles. You got to put that on the table. It's an issue of what are black people going to get? What are the descendants of slaves going to get? Full stop. And this agenda, this wasn't the result of George Soros floating some front cash to a couple of gay black people. This agenda didn't come from some bougie Negroes at some university or some group of black folks who apparently think that they're too good by half and they want white people to invite them to their cocktail parties. Because that's what some of these bougie Negroes, they like to do that. In order to get white folks to invite them to the cocktail parties, well, I'll cause a little bit of trouble for them, and I'll tell them the only way that I'll stop is if you invite me to the cheese and croissant circuit. I need a job. That didn't come from them. This political threat to white supremacy and its non-white flunkies is coming from the streets. The black streets. The old word games that they've always relied on have been exposed, and it's not going to help them anymore, so they don't know what to do at this point. That's why Kamala, Cory, and Cortez sound like blithering idiots. Not merely because they are dumb as a sack full of rocks, but because they're so used to patronizing us. No, let me be specific. They've been so used to patronizing the black baby boomers. But now you got Generation X, you got the black Gen Xers, who are doing our part to educate the black millennials, and we're getting the new black voter base on code. That's what they see emerging here. A new generation is starting to take control of the social discourse in the black community, and we're hitting the reset button. And all of the old assumptions that white power was able to push and promote because the black baby boomers never could see fit to push back. They went along with the okie doke because they just want white people to acknowledge their existence. You got this new generation of black folks. We're looking to go into hell with being acknowledged. Power is not about acknowledgement. It ain't about a pat on the head. Power is about power. We saw what Alexandria Cortez did when she was running for office. We saw that she ignored us. She didn't ignore the gays, didn't ignore the transgenders, didn't ignore the Jews, didn't ignore the Palestinians, did not ignore poor whites, did not ignore working class whites, but she ignored black people. And when it comes time to talk about us, she'll shamelessly try to derail the conversation by talking about Hispanics, or talking about the New Deal, or talking about the environment, or talking about the price of rice in China. But as far as she's concerned, black people are a non-issue for her. And she's not going to let anyone get her to talk about black folks except to dismiss us. That's what she was doing. What she did was so damn disrespectful. I don't give a damn if she comes out tomorrow morning wearing kente cloth, a kufi with a picture of Marcus Garvey tattooed on her back. As far as I'm concerned, she has committed an eternal crime that she cannot be redeemed for. And Cory Booker, that goes 10 times as much for him. There's nothing he can do that would make it where I would ever regard him as anything other than trash at this point. What this shows us is that we've put pressure on these bastards. We've even forced such outlets as the Breakfast Club, to have to talk like us now. We're not talking like them. We would never be so silly. They have to talk like us. We're not stupid, so we don't talk like idiots. We don't do all of that baby mama drama, all of that infotainment. Oh, who's dating who? Who's beefing with who? Nah, we talk about higher things. And what's also happened is we're helping to elevate the mentality of the black masses, because they're seeing that there happens to be a group of black people out here who are talking about some serious stuff, and that they're able to practically on a daily basis, if you're a black person, we got something we didn't have before. You as a black person actually have a number of voices who throughout the day, every day, you have the ability to hear a perspective and hear a point of view that directly speaks to your interests, which means it directly speaks to your power. For so long, you have black folks going, all they got on the radio is coonery and buffoonery. Well, dang, stupid, turn the radio off. You got something better than that garbage. You got something proper that speaks to you. The question is, are you going to accept it or not? And what we're finding is, yeah, there's black people who are accepting it. What we're showing is that this happens to be a message that has the appeal. That's the reason why we're not having to change our program. They're having to change theirs. And the Breakfast Club, the way that they went at Cory Booker, well, with one question, let's not overstate it. The fact that they brought it up pretty much in passing, that means something, because the Breakfast Club, they've never done this before. We forced those buck-dancing, good-for-nothing clowns like Charlemagne the Coon to actually have to speak words that he never has before. They bring white candidates on, Democrat candidates on, and it's all shucking and jiving, all playing around. Oh, black people are never brought into the discussion. Black people are never brought into consideration. Yeah, but they're having to do it now, and they're not doing it by choice. We're taking control of the social discourse in the black community. We're the ones driving the events now, exactly as we've been planning to for so long. This was not some overnight thing. But we knew that if we kept at it, if we showed the persistence, we would eventually attract a critical mass of black people, and that's you guys. You're the force multiplier. What we say here, you guys have been repeating and taking out into the world. And now what's happened is, after all this time, our efforts are bearing fruit. There's now a critical mass of black people who hear this message, are on board with this message, and are reacting to this message. We're making the black bootlicks of the old black media irrelevant. And if they hope to try to be irrelevant for another 5 minutes, then they're going to have to follow our lead, because we damn sure ain't following theirs. Charlemagne was forced, against his will, to ask Cory Booker what he was going to do for black people, and you saw what Cory Booker said. He would do exactly nothing. Yet when it comes time to talk about blackface, he makes sure to mention gay people. He wants gay people to know, I ain't forgot about you guys. Compare that, by the way, while we're on the topic of the Breakfast Club, compare what they did regarding Cory Booker to just 2 years ago, when they were shucking and jiving and playing the fool for Hillary Clinton. No serious questions. Talking about hot sauce and all that garbage. They damn sure didn't have any pointed questions about what she was going to do for black people. We are the ones who are driving the discourse. And we can only continue to drive the discourse by making sure that we take firm control of it and that we dictate what is appropriate, what is acceptable, and what is not. That's how we got to this point. The old black media, they saw what we did to Kamala Harris. We pointed out her record, and we've been ripping her a brand new rear end ever since. And she's abandoned pretty much all of her pathetic pandering to black people at this point. She sees that this isn't going to work. And by the way, when Luther Campbell, of all people, has credibility by writing an op-ed telling you that you're not going to get the black vote, that means even black people who you wouldn't normally think of as politically aware, they're on to her. Because we put her putrid record on the map. We made going at Kamala Harris the in thing to do. We did that from the grassroots. We are the ones who it came from. We made excoriating Kamala Harris hip. See, we were all about calling out Kamala Harris's record before calling out her record became cool. We were the early adopters of holding Kamala Harris's feet to the fire. That was us. I'm glad to see all these other people getting on board. What it means is what we say here has gone out into the world and that people are picking it up. They're with us. How many black actors or celebrities do you see trying to defend Kamala Harris? None of them. They've seen the backlash, and being the spineless cowards that these are, the black buffoon class, entertainers, they're hanging back. Yeah, Oprah Winfrey isn't able to put a spine into these jellyfish this time. They understand the same black people who are going at Kamala Harris. These are the same people who they depend on for their livelihood. So as far as they're concerned, I'm just going to concentrate on my job. I'm really apolitical, you know. They're caught on the horns of a dilemma. On the one hand, they see what black people at the grassroots, the ones who can be bothered to get off their butts, which means that they're also the ones who can be bothered to go to the movies or to pay for a Netflix subscription or what have you. These black people are calling out Kamala Harris. And even though these black celebrities and entertainers, white paymasters, may want them to fall on their swords for Kamala, they're looking and going, I can't. I don't know what to do. Yeah, but they know what they're not going to do, and what they're not going to do is fall on their swords for Kamala Harris. Things have gotten so bad for the first Indian American presidential candidate that she's been reduced to trying to pander to the Me Too vote, and all that means is white women. When you say Me Too, that means white women. Donald Trump got a majority of the white female vote in 2016. So when you go looking for the white female vote, when you go trying to call yourself courting the white female vote, that literally means the racist white female vote. That's what it means. I want these racist, I want all these racist women to vote for me. And that explains her attacking Lieutenant Governor Fairfax of Virginia. White women want Kamala Harris to affirm that she's going to ignore the accusations against Virginia's Attorney General. She ain't said a word about that guy. I don't know if she said anything about Governor Northam. Oh, I mean, former Governor Northam. But the point is, I think a lot of people are looking and going, hey, after what you did to Brett Kavanaugh, we don't want it getting a little bit too good to you. We don't want calling white men out on the carpet to get too good for you. We don't want you making a habit of that. You need to find some black men that you can excoriate. Hey, look at this, just Jason Fairfax over here. Yeah, somebody needs to go in on him. Here's Kamala Harris. There needs to be an investigation. Okay, so no investigation of the Attorney General, no investigation of Northam, but we need an investigation of Justin Fairfax. Kamala Harris is beginning to realize that she won't get the black female vote. That's why she's trying to court the white female vote. She's looking and going, well, other than some angry hood rats and some shea butter bootlicks, I'm not going to get the black female vote. And that lets her know something. This happens to be a shift. We're at the point now where things have undergone a change at the fundamental level. When I said that we're going to hit the political reset button, this is what I'm talking about. All of those old assumptions of, I got to get out here and appeal to black women's feminist vanity. Nah, that ain't going to work, because what's been happening is the black females are like, you know what? We see some brothers online who are leading, and that's what we're following. And what's happening is Kamala Harris doesn't have an answer for that. We've already put the word out that she's not a black woman. So trying to play the sister girl role, that ain't going to work for you. Getting white bigots like Howard Dean to vouch for you, it's pointless. You don't get to be black simply because you say so. Doesn't matter if you're Kamala Harris or Alexandria Cortez. We're pulling these clowns' black card. And the white media is scared because up until now they've had the ability to shape reality however they wanted. They could invent reality out of whole cloth. While they still retain that ability by and large, we have wholesale taken that ability away from them where Kamala Harris is concerned. We may not be able to control what the white media does, but we can control what we do in reaction to them. And you see how powerful that is. They don't have a solution for that. And if we can do it to one of their major party candidates, if we can neutralize the white media's attempts to shape public opinion, or at least to shape black opinion, if we can neutralize them on this with no resources, then that means that the white media has a real problem. The propaganda arm of white supremacy has a lot of strain on it. You know, if those of us descended from American slaves, if we put enough pressure on the propaganda arm of white supremacy, that thing's going to break. Just like with the breakfast schlubs, we're putting the white media in a position where they're going to have to follow our lead too. Because when you lack the ability to get the people behind you, when you lose the ability to drive events, then you have no choice but to follow the people who do. We're putting the bastards on the defensive. And what you see from Corey, Kamala, and Cortez sounds like a crooked-ass law firm now, don't it? What you see from these scumbags, that's the empire pushing back. This is a war. But it's been one where for the longest time we've been refusing to fight back. Now we are. So you see these guys pushing back against us as hard as they can. Understand that this is not going to come down to who has the biggest bankroll. It's going to come down to who has numbers that are sufficiently organized, galvanized, and deployed in order to achieve victory. We've already put our pieces in place. They can't move us. We have to show the persistence that we understand that we're in a fight. It's a fight that we're going to win, and that we're taking no prisoners, and we will tolerate no resistance.